Euzubillahimineşşeytanirracim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi şrah li sadri ve yessir li emri ve hlul ukdeten min lisani yefqahu kavli. Rabbena la tuzigh qulubana ba'de iz hadaytana ve hab lana min ledunke rahmeten inneke entel vehhab. Allahümme erinel hakka hakkan verzukna ittibahu ve erinel batila batilan verzukna ijtinabahu. Allahümme nevvir kulubana ve şrah sudurana bi nuril Kur'an vel iman vel İslam. Allahümme salli ala seyyidina Muhammedin ve ala alihi ve ashabihi ve etbaihi ve sellim. Selamun aleyküm ve rahmetullahi ve berekatuh. Inshallah, we will continue our discussion from 25th word. And as you can see on top, this is the 25th word, first light and first ray. We've been studying the miraculous aspects of Quran, and we studied its miraculous aspects from different perspectives, including the word choice, even the letter choices, and then the style of exposition, the way it is, it narrates things, its meaning, what kind of topic it includes, and so on and so forth. And for a few weeks, we've been studying a surah from Quran. This is the Surah At-Tur, and we've been studying, I guess, starting with 35, maybe. Anyway, a few verses we studied, and inshallah we will continue with the 38th verse of At-Tur. And in this part of the text that we are studying from Risale-i, again 25th word, we are studying the way Quran mentions different modes of disbelief, different reasonings or justifications for disbelief, and answers them. Like when we look at the wordings, the answers are, they seem to be implicit, but as author studies them, as author studies the meaning of these verses, it becomes clearer that Quran, in a miraculous manner, answers these justifications or these modes of disbelief. And I say miraculous in the sense that it captures all aspects of human thought, human attitudes. With only a few words, it touches upon different mindsets, different understandings of reality, different attitudes against reality, and talks about them and shows how this justification is valueless, only with a few words. So it's obvious that whoever is speaking in Quran, he knows humanity at large. He knows what it takes, or what it means, sorry, not what it takes, but what it means to be human. He knows what humans are, how they think, how we approach the things around us, how we interpret our experiences in life. And in Quran, the source, the author of Quran, speaks to all these different aspects of humanity, as if with these verses telling us that I am the one who created you, so I know you. I know that from time to time you think like that. I know from time to time you behave or act like that. I know you. I created you. Okay, let's continue, inshallah, again with the 38th verse, which says, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, or have they a ladder by which they can climb up to heaven and listen to its scripts? Then let such a listener of theirs produce a manifest proof. Or they have a ladder by which they can climb up to heaven and listen to its scripts. Then let such a listener of theirs produce a manifest proof. And just to have things in context, let's read a few verses before that, starting from the verse that we started discussion, and see how this verse follows them. Sorry. Okay, I think we started with the therefore remind, by the grace of Allah, you are neither a soothsayer nor a madman. Or they say, a poet, we await for him some calamity by time. Say, wait, I am with you among the waiters. Do their minds command them this? Or are they people transgressing all the bounds? Or do they say he has forged it? Nay, they believe not. Let them then produce a recital like unto it, if they are truthful. Were they created by nothing or out of nothing? Actually, by nothing is a better translation, so let's keep it. Were they created by nothing, or were they themselves the creators? Or did they create the heavens and the earth? Nay, but they have no firm belief. Or are with them the treasuries of your Lord? Or are they the tyrants with the authority to do as they like? Or have they a stairway by means of which they listen? Then let their listener produce some manifest proof. So it starts with the idea of denying Quran and different ways of denying it, different reasons of denying it, different let's say excuses of denying it. Oh, maybe the messenger, he was just a soothsayer, right? What he brings, it's nothing but soothsaying. Or maybe it's just a madman. Astaghfirullah. And then continues, or maybe it's their minds that command them, or we can take it as maybe they find it illogical or unreasonable, like their reasoning does not accept what is inside Quran. Maybe that's the fact. Maybe that's the reason. Or maybe they say, the Prophet who came up with these, the verses, it was his product. Or maybe they don't need such a scripture at all. Like they do not expect their creator to speak to them because they were created by nothing. There is no such thing as creator. Maybe that's the case. Or maybe they were the creators themselves. So maybe the reason they do not believe Quran because there is no one to speak. Hence,
last 30 minutes before
they don't expect their creator to speak to them because they think maybe things happen by themselves, or I am created by nothing, or maybe they think the things create each other. It happens due to some causes. Maybe this is the case. We studied all these parts. Or maybe they created the heavens and the earth. Maybe whatever we see, whatever we experience, it's out of our product. Like they are our products. And then, or maybe the treasures of the Lord are with them. They have access to certain things. What we see in creation, all these different names of the Creator. Again, maybe we don't need a Creator behind them. Maybe we attribute all these things to ourselves. All these different reasonings, and then now we're talking about a stairway by means of which we listen. So maybe that's the reason from time to time we deny Quran, we do not obey Quran, or we question the authority of Quran because we have some stairways, whatever it means, by means we listen. Maybe that's the reason. And before I start reading what author says about this verse, reading the text from 25th word, I like to ask you your initial comments, initial ideas about the verses we studied so far. Maybe your first impression about this specific verse, what kind of ladder stairways you think of when you read this verse. Any ideas? Osman, please.
So
go ahead.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting, especially the verse, the one that you just read, the verse that we have in front of us, or they have a ladder by which they can climb up to heaven and listen to its secrets. I think that for me, the first thing that kind of struck me is how we give essentially importance to things to explain existence for us, and in a way that kind of look at the universe in itself and trying to somehow find answers to our deep innate needs and questions, but stay kind of in this realm of the universe. So the main thing is people would say, for instance, science will answer the questions. And when I read essentially this, it kind of came to me that I could see this analogy where I look for an answer to my deep innate needs into science or other types of ways of thinking or investigating the world, and in that sense, I look for answers there, and I somehow attribute essentially qualities that that I am in need of, like sustenance or trying to understand the meaning of my life. So trying to kind of look for them within the word itself. And when we first read this verse, this is the first thing that kind of jumped to me. So I thought I would share that.
Jazakallah khairan. This is really interesting. So, to be honest, the verse was not that much clear in my mind at the beginning, but after listening to you, it became at least somehow clear. Inshallah, with others' comments, it will become even further clearer. So then the way I understand from what you said is we all need guidance. We all need to find out the meaning behind things, the purpose of things. We want to explain things. So far, we studied different reasonings, some of them saying that we don't need such a guidance, but in this type of reasoning, this belief, we say, okay, yes, we do as human beings, we do need some explanations, we need to chart reality in front of us, how things are related to each other, and what they tell us. We need this guidance, but we say, I don't need an explanation, I don't need a guidance from outside. I don't need an explanation or guidance from the so-called creator of the universe, because I have my letters. I have my letter, like I have my scientific methodology, I have my philosophical thinking, I have my, I don't know, the drugs to make me high, and using them, I can reach to some conclusions. I can find out some explanations. I have these letters for me. That's really interesting. Jazakallah khairan. Any other initial comments? While I'm taking care of my daughter, maybe you want to help me so that I have time to take care of her. You can hear her crying, obviously. Or we can start reading text and ignore her. Atik, please go ahead.
You pressured me into sharing my thoughts, Bir Khan, but here I'll save you some time. This kind of reminded me, this ayah and this discussion kind of reminded me of the story of Nuh and his son. From our perspective, we might see, the flood and Nuh calling out to his son to come onto the ark as like, divine intervention, right? Here's the solution to your problem. Here's the flood. You're about to drown. Come get on the ship and save yourself. But Nuh's son, he doesn't see it in that way. He sees it as just one option. Here's a flood. You got to go get to the higher ground. My dad has this boat. He's floating above the water. I'll go on this mountain and save myself from there. And I think that's kind of the idea. Like we have access to guidance, right, through our book, through religion or whatever, but people want to find other ways to reach guidance, right? This way is just one of many, or it's not good enough, or it's not for them, and so they seek out other ways. But of course, the question is, can they be certain? Can they find certainty in their ladders?
Jazakallah khairan. I'm so glad that she was crying and you had to step up and speak. This is beautiful. Yes, very good analogy. When Noah says, join me, his son says, no, I have my own mountain. I mean, that's not the wording, of course. That's what I understand, that I have a mountain to protect me. I don't need the sheep of Tawheed, unity. And similar way here, we say, we have our own ladders to climb up and listen to heaven. We have our own ladders, stairways to reach what is behind this creation. We can find out the purpose, we can find out the meaning, we can find out, how things relate to each other and to ourselves. Where we did come from, where we came from, where are we, going to, and where we will all end up. We can answer all these, we say. Okay, let's continue reading the text. Or like the spiritualists and phony soothsayers, or like the spiritualists. I don't know what is the Turkish word there? The original word, sorry?
Kehanet furuş.
For spiritualists?
Yes, and the other one is ispitizmacı.
Okay, so it's not the spiritualism as we use today then, I assume. So anyway, or like the spiritualists and phony soothsayers, do they follow Satan and the jinn and suppose they have found another way to the world of the unseen? Yes. Or like they have found another way to the world of the unseen. So we are after the world of unseen, but instead of relying on the message or speech of our Creator, we either invent our own speeches regarding the world of unseen or follow some other paths, as exemplified here by the path of Satan and jinn. In which case, have they a ladder by which to ascend to the heavens? In which case, have they a ladder by which to ascend to the heavens which are close to the Satans? So these heavens that we are trying to reach, they are out of reach to our methods, to our paths. So how are we planning to reach there? Do they imagine that they can give the lie to your news from the heavens? The denials of such charlatans are worth nothing. Denials of such charlatans are worth nothing. Yeah, that's a short but very interesting passage. So inshallah, yes, I was about to say it will be clarified with your beautiful comments. And Yusuf raised his hand. So let's hear his beautiful comment, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. So, in the historical narration of Prophet's experience throughout the revelation, there is a mentioning of this soothsayers were a lot before his time, this is being mentioned a lot in the Sirah books, like the life of the messenger. But after the messenger came, they say those soothsayers were not able to find their sort of spies because the heavens were blocked. So their access to the heavens were blocked. But what does that mean? Because apparently this verse or the explanation of the author resembles that narrative. So what does it mean that, so I will try to go over what that might mean. So I might be going totally off, but so why do people, first of all, go to soothsayers in the past or even in today? There is something that's uncertain to me, and I would like to know about it. So I go and ask someone who I suppose knows about it. For example, back in the day, people were interested in knowing, I don't know if or when they will die, or whether they will be able to succeed a certain thing. These are the unknowns for them. So they were going to soothsayers for that. Today, maybe I'm going to different types of soothsayers. I am following some of the Twitter personalities to, I don't know, make some guesses about where shall I put my money into so that I'm going to earn more money, whatever. But I guess in every aspect of time, there had been some people, there are unknowns for those people, and we are supposing that we can get answers to those questions. And there are some other people who is saying that, oh yeah, come to me, I will tell you the truth about the future. So if there is supply, if there is demand, then there is supply. So then this soothsayers were there, but then there's this mentioning of devils, and devils trying to reach or spying to the heavens as if bringing some messages from there. And then when the revelation comes, this came to an end. So these are the other 2 points that I'm trying to make sense of. So for example, when I follow some Twitter personality to get to know which bond shall I buy to make an investment, for instance, I guess the devil in this case being, since as devil indicates lies, like baseless claims or disinformation. So there would always be some liars who would come up with some baseless claims to tell you that, oh, this is what's going to happen. And with some probability, it's going to partially happen or whatnot. And then they will say, oh yeah, this is what I told. But they were giving such quote unquote guidance to 100 people. For 1 or 2 of them, it works. And then they say, yeah, I knew that it was going to happen. But how is it that by the coming of Quran, this is blocked? What does that mean? So what I understand is by the coming of Quran, the very idea itself is challenged. Knowing of the future. Quran is saying that, first of all, my worries about future. Why am I worried about future? Some worldly future. And Quran provides me answers about my real worries about the future, death, life after death, and actually reminding me of the fact that this should be really your concern. And the one who knows about it is in here and providing you guidance about that. Your worldly questions about your future, they're just your educational experience, and they're going to be shown to you when the time comes. So the belief in divine determining then comes into the picture, will tell me that everything in this existence is happening within an order. Why are you so insecure about your future? And he also says he is the one that knows. There is no other one who can know it. If somebody is coming up with this as if so surely saying that, oh, this is what's going to happen, let me tell you what's going to happen, then this person actually is a total liar, because that person is talking about something impossible. It's not within their reach. So how is it then that when Quran comes, their Satans were blocked from the heavens? Because Quran, if we pay attention carefully to what it says, showed their distrustfulness very clearly. So think of it like somebody who is claiming to know what's going to happen within next 5 years in the the house prices. And then somebody comes up and tells you the background story of that person, what sort of a liar that person has been, how many thousand people he has took their money and just escaped. That sort of an information is released about that person. Then what happens? That person's Satans, metaphorically speaking, are blocked from the skies, because now everybody knows that this is a scheme. This is just somebody trying to con you, is trying to deceive you. So that sort of a trickery will not work as long as that knowledge stays with people, as long as people know that such a behavior is very clearly a lie. Likewise, Quran is telling me about my reality, about my real worries about the future, provides them with answers. As long as that news of Quran stays with me, then whoever would come and tell me that, oh, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen in the future, that future might be, again, if Bitcoin is going to rise or decrease or increase, or also anything about my worries about the future, because Quran attracts my attention to correct worries, the things that I should truly be worried about. Plus, it gives me the answers for those worries. And I guess the most important aspect of giving such answers lies in the message, the main message of Quran about resurrection, and also belief in divine determining. So this is what I understand.
Jazakallah khairan. While speaking of different worries, you clearly exposed your own worries in life. So thank you for sharing your thoughts. Any other comments? Any other questions, disagreements to the comments so far? The parts that you are not sure, that the parts you are not, you don't understand. The parts that you like most, like you don't even have to make a comment. You can just say, I like this sentence a lot, or I like this comment a lot for that reason. Aziz, please go ahead.
Well, since you said the part that you liked, I liked what Man said earlier. The approach, his thinking about the sulam, like how to get to the truth using other methods, like whatever method you desire, scientific method or not, or finding associates. I'm just kind of expanding maybe a little bit, like associates or shuraka with Allah that may bring you up there, finding that fancy thing, that fancy collaborator, since you guys big academia people, that fancy paper with thousands of citations, and being part of that, and sense that there is nothing wrong with that until you start to develop that feeling that gets you to the Sultani Mubin there, that gets you to the truth. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Jazakallah khairan. there was someone else who raised hand, or maybe I was mistaken. Okay, let me ask a question. So here's the analogy of ladder or stairways is used. I guess the imagery is that we ascending from one place to another place. We go higher. And similar analogies are used with, when it comes to intellectual development as well. So what do you think about this analogy? Why do you think the analogy of ladder or stairways is used here? Climbing up to heaven. What do you understand from this part? Why not digging a hole to heaven, but climbing up to heaven? Any ideas? Suhail, please go ahead.
Assalamualaikum. Can you repeat your question? I joined a little bit late, but what was your question again?
Sure. I was questioning this analogy of ladder. It says ladder by which they can climb up to heaven. So it gives them, the impression that you ascend, you go from earth to heaven, to higher ground. And why such an analogy is used, that was my question. Why not digging a hole to heaven, for instance, but climbing up to heaven? Why heaven is higher than earth? Why do you need a ladder to reach there?
Well, sort of my first impression is that the earth is known, I guess, and the heavens are unknown, so to speak. And so there's like a mystery to the heavens. So, and that's associated with, I guess, distance or height rather than depth, because depth is right beneath your feet. But nobody really looks at the ground, they look at the sky. And the human being always feels like there's something mysterious or secret about the cosmos or the heavens. Not as much about the surrounding world as much as it is the heavens. That's why man is potentially always trying to escape this world, or the earth, so to speak. Trying to explain it, I guess. Trying to find some explanation, some rationale behind it. And so you get, I'm sorry, I don't know how you translated the spiritualist thing, but, or phony soothsayers. I mean, anybody trying to explain it, maybe that is somebody who has some sort of alternative explanation to the heavens. Could be a materialist, as he's pointing out in the past, or a scientist, or a philosopher, or some sort of soothsayer, because that's the mystery. What's out there, but what does it all mean, really? And it also sort of alludes to ladder ascending, and which is kind of an allusion, I guess, also potentially to ascension in and of itself, because ascension, I guess, is some sort of metaphor for enlightenment, understanding, realization, and it's sort of associated with distance traveled. So that's what I took away from why this sort of analogy is used. And I guess by the rhetoric or the rhetorical nature of the question asked in the Quran, or have they a ladder by which they can climb up to heaven and listen to its secrets? It's almost as if saying they don't, or I don't have a ladder to listen to its secrets. In other words, I can't explain the world by anything other than what the Quran presents as a sort of true explanation of what things mean. Because if I had to have a ladder, I guess another way to interpret it, some sort of a ladder is a material. Do I have a material explanation? An explanation that restricts itself to this world. That's another way I guess one could take ladder. Some sort of material explanation that restricts itself to this world. But I don't, because when I listen, I can't actually, there's no proof for it at all. So everybody's listening to the heavens, and I can try to explain it by an explanation within the nature of the heavens themselves, within the nature of this material world, which is like maybe a ladder, some sort of material explanation, but no such proof exists because it's not real. That explanation to the world isn't real, even though, as I said, everybody tries to construct some sort of, they try to construct some sort of building. They try to ascend. Everybody, it's within human nature to ascend, to try to make sense of the world, to try to understand things. That's what makes a human being and not an animal. So that's what I took away from this verse.
Jazakallah khairan. That's really interesting what you said. Yeah, like you trying to get beyond this world. You're trying to escape from the world, let's say, but you trying to do it using something of kind of this world, ladder. Using what you have at hand, you're trying to reach beyond the grasp of your hand. As, for instance, a naturalistic naturalism would suggest. Okay, if there, Yusuf, please go ahead.
So this also reminded me of another verse in Quran which talks about the Satan's or shooting stars, Satan's being stoned with the shooting stars. So it's also an interesting verse to think about, because again, in that verse, what we know as asteroids getting into the atmosphere and burning due to air friction is being mentioned as Satan's being stoned from the skies, like as if drawing an imagery, saying that those people who are trying to come up with or try to reach the skies and get the news or steal the news from the skies, from the heavens, they are spies being Satan's, and they are trying to reach there. And then from, as if the inhabitants of the skies, there are borders, as if, again, an imagery. And from that borders, they are being shot with fireballs. And what we observe as asteroids is sort of a imagery that reminds us of this. And I guess, yeah, as you both said, anything that tries to, any ideology, any person that tries to come up with an explanation of the reality of that existence is sort of attempting to get to the skies. So from the material earth, we are trying to come up with an explanation in regards to the purpose and the meaning of this existence. This is, metaphorically speaking, is an attempt to climb to the skies. Sky in here meaning the purpose and the meaning of this existence. And then in that the verse that I was mentioning, it says the inhabitants of skies as if would throw fireballs to you, in a sense, meaning that you're going to end up with nothing but contradictions. The truth is going to highlight that you are lying. It's going to become that clear. And taking Quran as the speech of the skies, now we are already observing, to the extent that we study Quran, we will observe that each verse of Quran is actually a fireball being thrown at such false ideologies, as if burning them, shoving their lie in the face. And also, I guess, in this relationship between sky and the earth, this verse right now is saying that as if still some people are claiming that they brought messages from the sky, they find another way to reach to the heavens other than the revelation or the prophethood. So the verse is challenging, okay, then bring them in. They should have a proof. It should be a consistent explanation of this reality. So they should bring their proof about this.
Jazakallah khairan. I guess with this comment, we can continue, switch to the next ayah, since Yusuf nicely touched upon every aspect of the verse. Waiting a few more seconds to see if there are any other comments. Okay, no. Oh, Mohammed Said, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. As you said, the beautiful aspects are revealed so far. One of the aspects might be, in my world, that the claim of the messenger is portrayed as when the claims of the messengers of God portrayed as like man-made, as the product of human beings. Actually, that claim implies that it can be made by human being. Such a guidance can be generated by human being. I think here this verse is saying that can you really communicate with the world of unseen by yourself without the world of unseen coming to you? Is it really possible? That's what I got from this verse. Thank you.
Thank you. Jazakallah khairan. Our efforts to reach the world of unseen and trying to do it with our own treasures. Okay, I will continue with the next verse, inshallah. Or has he only daughters and you have sons? Interesting verse. So for daughters for him and sons for us. So I believe there's a allusion here to some historical narrations about disbelievers of time attributing the gender of female to angels and calling them as the creators of Allah. astaghfirullah, daughters, while they like to keep sons for themselves and so on and so on. But of course, this is just one aspect of it. Not probably, this is certainly true for this first correspondence. So when they hear this ayah, they make a connection with their reality, which can be summarized as what I explained. But it was their time, it was their world, their life. So they took it seriously, they took this verse seriously and say that this verse is speaking to me. This verse is speaking to me, I have to match it with my reality. I have to see how this verse explains my reality. And the explanation of that time probably was related to this state of affairs that I explained. So we should do the same. We should follow their path and take this ayah seriously and say how it matches to my reality. What aspect, what part of my reality is explained with this ayah. Or like the polytheist philosophers who ascribe partners to God under the name of the 10 intellects. So I'm not aware of the idea of 10 intellects. I'm sorry, I wanted to search for it, but I didn't have time. So any help about these 10 intellects would be much appreciated. Or like the polytheist philosophers who ascribe partners to God under the name of the 10 intellects and the masters of the species. Again, I'm not familiar with this notion as well. Naz, I will give the mic to you. Let me just finish this sentence and then it's your turn. And the Sabians who attributed a sort of Godhead to the stars and the angels, do they ascribe offspring to Almighty God? So he's giving these different examples, all of which ascribing some partners to things, to creatures, ascribing some attribute of Godhead to certain objects or creatures. And author asks, is that the reason that you think what is narrated in Quran is wrong? And the stage is yours, Nas. Please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. No, I just wanted to point out the 10 intellects. I think he's talking about the new Platonism, where like there are these divine entities that flow out of the essence of God, and so they're the things that the lower entities are made out of. So I think that's what he's referring to. Allah.
Oh, you use the name for it, like you said new something. I missed that. Sorry.
Oh, Neoplatonism. Neoplatonism.
Oh, okay. Okay, I see. Okay, Jazakallah khairan. Any other ideas about these 10 intellects, masters of species, Sabians? Obviously, it doesn't really matter whether we know them in detail or not, but just in case anyone has some ideas, like Yusuf, for instance, or he may also say that, oh, I want to talk about the previous ayah. Please, whatever you want to say, Yusuf, go ahead.
So for that 10 intellects, I remember reading something about this in Avicenna, Ibn Sina. So the problem they were trying to solve was the existence. Okay, there is a God, and then there's this existence, his creation. But how does created beings come out from an eternal one? So as if trying to understand the nature of the act of creation. So for that, they came up with a hierarchy of God created the first intellect, then came the second intellect, sort of a hierarchy is being created in there, for which when I was reading it, it was a summary, so not much of a detail that I know, for which I couldn't make sense of why they tried to make it like those 10 stages. But the problem that I was seeing in there was trying to define the nature of, or the essence of the act of creation itself. So you yourself being a created thing, trying to define how the uncreated or the absolute one is doing the act of creation. So in a sense, there is a huge distance actually in between created beings and the creator. But those people of intellect, those people were trying to push hard to pass from one boundary to the other. We're trying to understand the nature of the boundary in between them. So they were trying to bridge the gap with these 10 intellects. So I'm taking it as an attempt of humans sort of trying to define God.
Okay, Jazakallah khairan, that clarifies certain things. And Nazmul has a comment. You can read. I will not read it so that it won't, be part of the recording. Okay, let's continue. Like the heretics and misguided, do they ascribe a son to him, which is contrary to the necessary existence, unity, eternity, and absolute self-sufficiency of the single and eternally besought one? Do they ascribe femininity to that offspring, which is opposed to the angels of worship, purity, and kind? That's interesting. Like, although ayah at first read sounds like there's a comparison between daughters and sons, the author takes it as it doesn't really matter whether it is son or daughter. Some people say he has sons, some others say he has daughter or daughters. It doesn't matter. Both are the same. Do they suppose it to be an intercessor for them, this offspring being an intercessor for them, so that they do not follow you? Generation is the means of multiplying, mutual assistance, perpetuation, and life for creatures like man, who is contingent, transitory, and in need of perpetuating the species, is corporeal and divisible, capable of multiplying, impotent and needy for an heir to help him. So to ascribe offspring and the sort of offspring that those impotent, contingent, wretched men did not themselves like and couldn't equate with their arrogant pride, that is female offspring, to the all-glorious one, whose existence is necessary and perpetual. To the all-glorious one, whose existence is necessary and perpetual, who endures from pre-eternity to post-eternity, whose essence is utterly remote from and exalted above corporeality, whose being is free of and exempt from division and multiplication, and whose power is far above and beyond all impotence, is needs such a delirium, such a lunatic raving, that the lies and denials of those wretches who subscribe to such an idea are worth nothing. You must not be deceived. The scatterbrained nonsense, the delirious ravings of every crazy lunatic shouldn't be heeded. So that was an interesting text. So I like the part the author equate not liking a female offspring with being wretched. Being a father of a lovely daughter, I can 100% agree with him. Okay, initial comments, discussions. That's a really interesting passage that we read. So I am kind of sure that there will be very interesting comments from you as well. Let's hear them, inshallah. So, offsprings, female, male, they obviously refer to something. If you have any idea, please go ahead. I don't have much idea, to be honest, like what the female offspring represent, what the male offspring represent, why it is necessary or is it meaningful to talk about them separately. To be honest, I don't have much idea. But when it comes to offspring, attributing offspring, ascribing offsprings to the creator, is it something that we do, or is it something, certain people, like these Neoplatonists do only? So if this is the case, we don't have to even study these, because, our purpose here is not to study certain ideologies, but to study ourselves. So do we ascribe offsprings to creator? Hopefully unintentionally, of course. Atik, please go ahead.
So in the Wednesday discussions that a couple of us attend, someone mentioned that in the past people didn't really understand things, and they assign or describe attributes of God as separate gods themselves, and they try to explain the world as these separate gods working together to create all this stuff. And I think in that sense, the offspring of God could be interpreted as, isolating a attribute of God and making like an ideal out of it, right? Maybe like in a modern context, valuing something like freedom and isolating that from God, and working towards absolute freedom as an end goal, and ignoring its relation to the complete collection of God and his other attributes and sort of things. And so when you isolate it, you reach an imbalance and kind of get into excesses of sorts. And how does this relate to femininity? I'm not sure, but I would like to point out that the Statue of Liberty is indeed a woman.
Jazakallah khairan. That was an interesting closing, which attracted some attention, of course. Suhail, please go ahead.
Yeah, that was an interesting statement. I kind of lost my train of thought. Oh, so I guess what kind of like what he was saying, but there's I guess maybe Statue of Liberty is a good example. This idea that the world or anything that's beyond man has a sort of feminine or effeminate quality, in that, you know, this idea of like mercy or compassion or which is like some notion that the Statue of Liberty conveys, that people are welcome. You know, that was, I mean, I forget the exact saying that's written on Statue of Liberty, but, you know, the poor and the wretched are, you know, are welcome. Something to that effect. I can't remember exactly, but this sort of effeminate quality that's associated with the female, and this is sort of kind of people perceive the world to be as well, you know, myself included, in that things are being taken care of, things are looked after. There's a sort of regularity and order in the world. And by and large, Mother Nature, Mother Earth, is taking care of everything. And that's because it's human to sort of look at this world, even if you are like an ardent denier, and not recognize mercy and compassion. It's implicit. It's human to not to see it, and to deny it. I mean, questions one's humanity, but the issue is to whom do you ascribe it to, and you ascribe it to the very nature of the world, which is essentially ascribing it to angelic beings, because angelic creatures are sort of the representation, the meaningful or symbolic representation of the world, of the material world. So you're ascribing mercy, which manifests through them, as being belonging to them. So that's, you know, one thing. And anybody who denies it, like Atik was saying, look at the Statue of Liberty. You know, that's just like a symbol, or one of the symbols of America. The other thing is about the sun aspect. To me, sun I take as to be causality, because the sun, or the male figure, is this sort of apparent causality, and it's almost as if man wants to take what he does to belong to himself, what he does in his world, in his own immediate world. And because through the sun is like there is a preservation of lineage and legacy, which somehow means that man is doing something specifically that they're responsible for, and that they should be remembered for, and be entitled to. So as a side point, that's kind of also how I interpret, in one sense, interpret the birth of Jesus, in that you have the mother figure, sort of the idea of mercy and compassion, but the lack of a father figure, which is the lack of causality. There's no causal relationship, true causality in the world. It's just our perception, hence the removal of the male figure, because there is no true thing as cause and effect in this world. Everything is just an effect. But, you know, man's ego is such that he wants to attribute things to himself, so he takes sons. So, yeah, the world may be doing something. Mother Earth or Mother Nature may be doing things, but I have some role. You know, I do something too. So that's kind of what I took away from this.
Jazakallah khairan. That was very, I don't want to say informative, but, you know, made things much, I guess, understandable. Jazakallah khairan. Ayşenur and Abdurrahman, let's hear both of you, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. I don't have any super insightful comments, but Suhail's comment was really helpful in thinking about this paragraph for me. You know, when I look at the verse initially, there's, I guess, there's a few different things I like about it, or that make me think. One is that how concise it is and how concisely it's able to kind of make one question notions of what belongs to me, what belongs to God, the sharing of powers, everything that, you know, the author himself has written here. So I guess just that was one point on its eloquence, I suppose. Another thing that you know, so one could look at this verse and say, okay, yes, it's you know, it's just historically, it's responding to the historical claim that angels are the daughters of God, as some idolaters had claimed. And one could be done with that understanding. But I guess just echoing what Suhail was saying, when we look at our contemporary society and our contemporary language, and especially how we talk about Mother Nature and ascribing meaningful happenings that we see, meaningful occurrences that we see, qualities that, like mercy that we see, that, you know, Quranically we can say are angelic in terms of the meanings that they represent. In everyday speech, we ascribe them to Mother Nature, say Mother Nature's taking care of us. And so I thought that was a really interesting connection, because it shows us that I guess it's just one explicit way of seeing how this verse, you know, forces me to question how I view the world and the language I use to describe that same world. And just as a final point, you know, I feel like Nursi here makes the contrast so stark. You know, contrast of one who has necessary existence, unity, eternity, and absolute self-sufficiency, with a human being who is completely needy, who is completely, you know, transient, contingent. Just that I think really drives home the point well.
Jazakallah khairan. Since she you know, opened a discussion about these contrasts that the author draws in the text, any other comments, ideas about the contrast? Why the idea of creator cannot you know, get along, go together with the idea of creator having offsprings? Farah, please go ahead.
It's always fascinating to think about the words of the Quran and not fall into making just sort of simple, simple sort of like meanings out of it. But just building up on what was said, I think Suhail was saying about suns representing some sort of causal quality to themselves. Just building on that idea, what I was also thinking was, you know, getting out of sort of the, you know, masculinity, femininity debate and understanding this term in this verse. One thing that came to mind was that in, and I know maybe ABCs of Arabic, but in Arabic, things that are in pairs are often referred to as females, like, you know, your eyes or your hands, for example. So what that also, I was thinking, and I would want some more context if people have that when they'll say, when someone, or I guess if I'm trying to interpret this verse, that they ascribe to God daughters, it's like, you know, duality or ascribing sort of as you were sort of hinting to your question about assigning sort of partners, I guess, not partners, but the fact that it challenges unity and oneness, and that they keep or they assign or keep the suns for themselves is that they attach themselves with sort of causal ability over things. So, and I'll inshallah think more on this, but I just wanted to point that out.
Jazakallah khairan. Thank you. Any other comments, especially regarding the part, the final sentences where author says, thinking any sort of offspring, trying to attribute any sort of offspring to creator doesn't make sense for this and that reason. Yusuf, please go ahead.
So it might be a repetition of what has already been said, but to arrive to the conclusion of the creator, we already start by considering whether the things that are happening because of the things that are around them, so within existence. So, like, to give a simple example, when I see an apple, I consider apple tree or the clouds or the sun or the earth revolving or whatever, the causes around them as potential candidates to be the doer of that apple, to be the giver of that apple. But once I observe that they are incapable of doing it, by realizing that they cannot be a creator, then I eventually say illa Allah. So la ilaha part comes first, then comes illa Allah, except the one who is not any of these. So this is why actually it is contradictory to say that the things themselves are sharing some of the qualities of the creator. Because in order to arrive to the conclusion of creator, I already need to deny or factor out the possibility of anything within the existence being a creator. So it's a contradiction in the first place. But we always fall into such an error. So it was not only the Greek or the Roman gods that were imagined to be like multiple gods. They have offsprings, and there's this hierarchy of godness in them. Yeah, you move to Muslim philosophers, Ibn Sina, he was talking about something similar. You come to today, people say that everything is God. I mean, somebody who even denies God, I came across several of such people. When you start talking about them, they say, yeah, I believe in nature. Nature is the God, or the spirit of the nature. Everything is God, sort of a, like the spectrum is so wide. But the problem at each of those is actually, although it looks like in one end, like let's say in the way that Ibn Sina was putting it, there is one God, but he created and gave some godly qualities to other things. And then eventually it propagated down, as Suhail was saying. So causality, giving godly qualities to the things themselves. On the other end of the spectrum, you see people nowadays who say, they are spiritual but not religious. They say, yeah, I don't believe in God, but the universe is God, or everything is God, for instance. But the common problem in these wide spectrum is giving godly qualities to the things themselves. And in a sense, the other side of the coin is, once you say that, then God does not exist for you anymore, because it's a contradiction. If things themselves have godly qualities, then you don't need a God who is going to do things. But this also within itself, as Atik was saying, doesn't make any sense. So there cannot be multiple gods. So it either is going to be an all-powerful, knowledgeable God, and the rest is his creation. And you do not know really, and actually you cannot know the nature of relationship between the creator and the creation, you cannot define it. All I can say is, I am being created, the existence is being created. That's all I can say. How does it happen? I don't know. I know, or when it comes into existence, I experience existence. That's all I can say. But if I step beyond this and I try to define the things themselves or give godly qualities, as Suhail was talking about, causal relationship, if I start establishing causal relationship between the things, then this is where I end up saying. Maybe I'm not explicitly saying that God has a son, God has a daughter, sort of verbally expressing it in this language, but eventually this is what it boils down to. And this is why in Christian tradition, this is clearly spoken out with that terminology. But in all other ideologies out there, which is giving effect to causes or the power to the causes, including a Muslim could very easily nowadays say that, yeah, God created something and then the Big Bang and the rest happened by itself, for example. This is also another way of saying that things have godly qualities. So I guess it's a very wide spectrum.
Jazakallah khairan. Let's hear Aziz, his beautiful comments, and maybe we can close with his comments.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. I'm gonna insert some of my broken English into this very nice and elegant discussion. So when I read this, it seems, I mean, after all the thoughts I heard, it seems that the sentence is simply, or not simply, maybe it's a wrong word, is about like challenging us to, if we could see ourselves as partners in power, like splitting power between us and the creator. And the ayahs we were discussing last week and the week before, it's coming from, did they create the heavens and earth? And are they the managers of their affairs? And do they have a ladder to get to heavens? And it seems like it may fit that the next challenge. Can they even share part of the power? Not all of it. Clearly, they couldn't create themselves. Clearly, they could not get any sort of access to heavens through their own ladder. So maybe the next challenge is like, are they also share part of that power with us? And the following, I seem to follow same kind of thinking, that they're not even qualified almost to share any part of that power, because or is it that you ask for a reward so that they are burdened with a load of debt? So it's really interesting. Honestly, I never thought I could ever make any sense of that ayah, to be honest, when I saw it at the beginning, but Jazakumullah khairan, it was really fruitful discussion.
Definitely same here as well. There was really fruitful discussion for me as well. So is it my interface going crazy, or Aziz raising and then lowering his hand constantly?
It's hard to lower it. I'm struggling with this.
That's okay. So I thought, I'm getting crazy. My eyes nowadays are weak. Okay. Any other comments? Otherwise, we can conclude today, inshallah.
Just one small comment, if I may.
Sure, please. Keep it small so that we can also listen Abdul Rahman and Aishanur, inshallah. I reverse the order.
Okay. So we might have talked about it last week also, but since it repeats in here again, I just want to underline it once more. Again, in the closing remarks of this paragraph, the author says, you must not be deceived the scatterbrained nonsense, the delirious ravings of every crazy lunatic should not be heeded. So author in here is also, I guess, teaching us a way to read Quran, because such a remark was made at the very first, right after the first verse that started this chain of ideologies. In the first verse, it was saying that, do they say you are mad for the messenger? Then he said, don't worry, the creator said. In the following verses, the creator only mentioned their ideology, but he didn't repeat the second part. But the author is reading it as if this verse keeps repeating after each of those ideologies. Quran didn't repeat it because it was so obvious. Like their initial claim of you are mad or possessed, sort of a thing, to the messenger. So the creator says, don't worry, this is a nonsense. And the following claims are equally nonsensical, so must repeat the following verse, which says, yeah, you don't need to pay attention to every nonsensical ideology. You don't need to try to make sense of, try to give a sensical answer to those, because many of those ideologies are maybe cooked up, I would say, to prove a standpoint. So, for example, I don't want to believe, but I want to come up with an excuse for that position of mine. And then Brother Birkan comes up and tries to disprove my point to convince me. But in the first place, the thing that motivated me was not the idea itself. I covered my position with that idea to secure my position. Otherwise, like the idea was motivated by a position. It's not that my position was a result of the idea. So in a sense, such verses are telling me that there's no truth behind that really. So, and you are okay, and you are seeing that it doesn't make any sense, and you are maybe being doubtful about yourself. How come such and such smart people are keep following this sort of a nonsensical idea? Is it me that I'm not able to see what they are seeing? As if this verse is saying that, no, you're perfectly fine. This idea doesn't make any sense at all. That's true. But yeah, it's those guys. They don't want to really make sense of anything. They are just doing it to cover up some stuff. So you're good. Don't be doubtful about your sanity. It is their insanity. What's at play in here?
Jazakallah khairan. Let's finish with Ashanur and Abdulrahman, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for the discussion. So just a very, very quick comment. I mean, it was already mentioned that there's like this separation, or in this, God has daughters and then they have sons type of thing. Like it was already mentioned that this can be interpreted as like I attribute things to myself and I attribute some things to God. There's like a separation in that sense. I just wanted to emphasize on that just a little bit more, like just, I don't know, sitting down and thinking about this verse during this discussion is the way I've digested is like I have a tendency to, it's not just about attributing things to myself and then attributing some things to God. It's about sometimes God just does not play a role in my life in some events that I am in, even if I don't attribute it to myself. Like I might experience something and I don't attribute it to myself. Like I don't claim ownership necessarily over it, but God just doesn't play a role in it. Maybe it's because you're lazy or you're not thinking about it, or it just doesn't come to your mind. You're living in a passive state. But some things have to do with God. Like when I go to the masjid, that's an area for God. But I come home and that's me living my life. Or workplaces where I make my food or earn my bread money. There's these separations that I witness in my life. Some areas are for God. A discussion is to think about God, but then after discussion, I will go eat, and in there, I'm just satisfying my hunger. And here I see the verses saying, what are these separations that you are coming up with? There should be no separations. There is no God is here and not there. It's in everything that you could see that as later on, like Nursi talks about how everything points to it, everything points to his necessary existence. I just wanted to emphasize how this verse is talking about there should be no separation in anything.
Jazakallah khairan. Very beautiful, and it makes sense that the ending part of the text is about the unity and pre and post eternity of the Creator, His indivisibility, and so on. Yes, we cannot separate, we cannot divide things between us and God. Jazakallah khairan, everybody. Thanks a lot for joining the discussion, contributing, listening, writing, speaking, or even those who cannot join us today but thinking about us, keeping us in prayers. Jazakallah khairan, everybody. Let's close inshallah. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Al-Fatiha.